Now we come to the crux of the matter, What are these two elements that are so important in spiritual life? I think I said that is duty and responsibility. I told you something about the Sanskrit sloka about duty to one's parents, Matra Devo Bhava, Pitra Devo Bhava. The mother comes first, the father comes next. Then Acharya Devo Bhava, Guru. Then Atithi, the uninvited person who knocks your door at midnight, claiming succor. A mother, when she feeds her children, even when she has no money to afford it, does not think it's my duty to feed my children, at least not in the Eastern cultures. She will give her life to somehow feed them. So you see, that is what it's a mixture of duty, responsibility, and that which supersedes both of them, of which they are both part, love. Because when you love, there is duty and responsibility from you automatically. You don't feel this is my duty. You don't think this is my responsibility. That is duty without consciousness of what you are paying for it. That is dharma. So duty is that which has to be performed absolutely without any thought of your own self. No, self-consciousness is bad because we have no right to think of ourselves. Human beings are not born to think of themselves. Because when you think of yourself, you think of yours, mine, as I said in an earlier talk, me and mine. If nature provides everybody, why should I worry what nature will not give me? Nature will give me what I need. And the more I think of myself, the more I feel insecure. I have seen the poor people, like rickshaw pullers who earn 5 rupees a day, 10 rupees a day. They have no concern for the future. He has his rickshaw. What will you do tomorrow? He says, God will give me. But don't you want to save? Save for what, he says. And the Christian prayer says, give us this day our daily bread, not our weekly bread or my monthly bread or our annual bread. Give us this day our daily bread. So these dictates of religion, of various religions, they're all the same, You are entitled to the moment's need. You have to breathe. Can you store up breathing and breathe tomorrow for today or today for tomorrow? You are dependent on your next breath from me. And you are laying up your bread and butter storage and your gold in your banks for what? So you see, the Indian culture has never bothered about the future. Our future in spiritual India is restricted to liberation. Because in my life, in my temporal life as a human being, there are going to be problems every day. Existential problems. Food has been of little concern because the cheapest food we eat, good quality, but no ostentation, no dressing up. The poor man's roti has no ghee, rich man's roti has ghee. That's all about, the difference. So we have no concern. Our only concern is spiritual. How to have final emancipation out of this life, where even faith I don't need, that I will be provided for tomorrow. Where I don't need any guarantees that my next breath will be there. Because there I don't breathe, there I don't eat, there I don't defecate. So the Indian longing, the Indian concern has always been how at the end of this life, whenever it may end, I can find this liberation, this moksha as we call it. See, I am reminded of a story of an emperor. He was a tyrant and everybody wanted him to die and go to hell. But he had a fish pond in which he used to feed his fish every day with love. When he died, he went up for judgment. All the voices were against him. Send him to hell, God, they said. And just as he was about to sentence him, there were a few tiny voices from some tiny things in one corner of his divine, court hall. They said, Majesty, we would like to be heard. Yes, your divinity, he has looked after us with love, fed us daily. That also may be taken into consideration. So God said, yes, you are taken into consideration. He shall have 5 minutes in heaven, the rest in hell. He can choose which he wants first. And one wise fish came unto his ear and said, choose heaven first, because when you are in heaven, you cannot be removed. You see, that is how even the smallest good repays us. But not with the idea that I will have good from this. I don't give to a beggar saying, oh God, remember this. Otherwise it becomes like the scouts, You are one good deed for the day to be written in your calendar and shown to the scoutmaster. Unthinking charity, unthinking help, unthinking, self-giving. As Babuji said, Babuji's idea of charity was completely different. He said, your duty to your family is paramount. If your family is in need, you must not give in charity even one penny. But what about charity? That's not charity, he said. You can't rob from Peter to pay Paul. If you are taking away from your family, what about your duty to your family, your responsibility to your family? You married, nobody foisted marriage on you. You have children which you love. Look after them first. So this is where they say, charity begins at home. Then it goes beyond your doors. Still, if you have enough, it goes beyond your village. As I said the other day, charity must finally extend to the whole universe. And that charity can come only from a divine vessel containing unlimited sources, which is the heart. Love alone we can give. And then it becomes no more charity. Now when you have love in your heart and it is only love, you become love which Master was. There's no question of loving you or him or her. It flows like honey, tastes sweet to everybody. Like lime juice is bitter to everybody. Like sugar is sweet to everybody. Now it manifests its own quality of the self. Our aspiration is to become like that. This is Sahaj. This is duty. This is selflessness. This is love. Love rules all. When you have love, duty, responsibility, you may view them as separate things, you see. It is like a symphony in which you don't distinguish which is the do and which is the me. Everything flows into the next note. And if they don't, there's no harmony. If there's no harmony, it's no music, it's just noise.